Great. So our focus today is Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, which is a long name for bridge pose, the Sanskrit name. And bridge pose is a pretty common posture or shape that we do in many classes, partly because it's pretty accessible to most people, and partly because it just has all these really great benefits. It's a back bend. So when we engage in back bending, we are opening the front of the body and strengthening the back of the body. So the front of the body being the thighs, the hips, the abdominals, the chest, and the back of the body, we're really strengthening. If you got a chance to look at that figure that I put up on the screen share, we're strengthening the hamstrings, we're strengthening the glutes and the upper back. And bridge can be done dynamically, it can be done statically. It is probably an intermediate back bend, so it's not as difficult as chakrasana, wheel, but perhaps a little more challenging than bhujangasana or sphinx pose, where we're on our bellies. The other thing I find really interesting about the pose, and this morning when I got up, I went downstairs, and the 4-year-old who lives here was watching a little cartoon. I sat in the chair with him for a while, and it was a little story about a choo-choo train coming to this edge of this cliff, and the bridge was down. How random or not, right? And then these little creatures trying to build the bridge. And really, we're always being asked to build bridges. We're always having a cycle of construction, deconstruction, or things falling apart, and then this reordering. So order, disorder, and reorder. It's happening all the time in our lives. And right now feels there's a pretty big disorder. And we have to figure out, we have to have the wisdom to know how to get from one side of the gap to the other. That's a lot of our work. And in yoga, we say that yoga is both the process and the end goal. So in other words, yoga as union, as a full realization of who we are as divine beings, that is our goal, but is also the means for achieving this goal. So just some things to ponder as we play in our bodies. This embodying practice allows us to really very solidly, it's a very sensational kind of practice, and we can feel these things. So just thinking about like a little bit about how you personally bridge these gaps, and what is the foundation, what is the firm foundation that you have. And when we look at poses, in particular in asana, we break them down because we're asking what needs to be open to be able to do this pose? What needs to be accessed to be able to do this pose? And so the metaphor obviously is the same. What do we access? What's in our toolkit? And you and me and everyone, we have what we need. We have what we need. Sometimes it's hidden and we have to rediscover it, but we have what we need to make these transitions and these transformations. Great. So I do see on my screen, my bandwidth is a little low. I don't know if some of you can go ahead and turn off your video, and we'll see if that helps. But so far, I think I am coming across clearly. I don't seem to be freezing. So here we go. We'll start on our backs, everyone. And you'll need your block with you on your mat or near you, and a strap as well this morning, some kind of strap or belt. Okay. So come to your back, and as we often do, just take a position where you can drop in and feel the support of the ground. You don't need to be in total stillness, but see if you can allow yourself to unwind, so to empty. So you might be in the Shavasana shape, or you might bring your soles of your feet together and let your knees rest on one another. And just take a few minutes to really settle into the floor. Noticing if you're feeling at all in a hurry, distracted or agitated. And if so, can you deepen your breath? So more and more, I feel like this is such an important part of practice, this emptying. And then we'll bring our feet together, ankles together, pull your toes back towards your shins, so legs and feet in Tadasana. And reach your arms overhead, the backs of your hands touching the floor. And really just stretch through either both feet or one at a time, one heel, one hand, just opening through the lateral side, right and left. This is super important physiologically to allow us to open front and back body. We get the lateral sheath opened first. So you could stretch both hands away, stretch both feet away, or press through the right heel and reach through the right hand. And then release that, press through the left heel and the left hand. This is my preferred way, but you might like just pressing both feet away and reaching both arms away. But feel the length in your lateral sheath, right and left. Opening through the rib cage, right and left. The hips. And then come back to relaxing just a bit. Bring your arms to goalpost and bring the soles of your feet to the floor as wide as the edge of your mat. And here, just let your knees move softly back and forth. Again, we do this quite often. And so feeling into your low back, but also today, this morning, could you, as you let your knees drop to one side, really stretch and lengthen through the top of the leg moving to the inside. So as your knees fall to the left, really feel for stretching the top of the right leg. So press the inside of your foot as if you were going to stretch the long edge of your mat and feel an opening on the top of that thigh. And when your knees fall to the right, press the inside of your left foot into the mat as if you were trying to stretch the long edge of your mat away, and feel the opening on the top of your left thigh. And just take a few moments to move back and forth. So we want the top of our legs to be quite open for back bending. And also, as you probably notice, as you move your knees back and forth, that when you rest your knees to one side, you do create a little arch underneath your back. So this is a sort of a precursor to a back bend. And then the next time your knees fall to the right, stretch your left arm long, and you could gaze up at your left hand, creating a little bit more arch in your low back. And then slide your knees back to center, slide your hand back to goalpost, and then knees go to the left, reach the right arm long. Back to center. Let's do 2 more times on each side. Just take your time. There's no hurry. And as you go back and forth, match the breath with the movement. Match your breath with your movement. Inhaling the knees up and exhaling knees to the other side. And then when you finish those 2 times, come back to center. Interlace your hands right behind your head and stack your knees over your hips, lower legs parallel to the earth, and pull your toes back towards your shins. We'll just engage in the core here slightly. So pressing your feet into an imaginary wall and squeezing, either squeezing your block if you have it handy. You could squeeze your block between your upper inner thighs, or you could imagine that you're squeezing your block there. And your inhale, you're on the floor. And on your exhale, just lift your head and shoulders. Draw your low back into the floor. Inhale, release back down to the floor. Exhale, squeeze the block or the imaginary block. Press your back into the floor and lift. So just a few yogi sit-ups here, yogi crunches, taking your time, relaxing your neck, but allowing for full discovery of the front abdominals. So we want engagement before we lengthen. So we're accessing the abdominals here because we're eventually going to be stretching and lengthening the abdominals. So get a little engagement in the legs and the abdominals. Good. And you can do maybe 8 to 10 more. Resting your head in your hands, relaxing the neck. Taking your time. And I'm a pre-pour counter, so maybe you're already finished. I'm on maybe 8 or so here. And then we'll come back down to the floor. If you've used a block, take the block out from between your legs, set it aside, the soles of your feet to the floor, and then just lift your hips slightly, just a little bit, and then lower them back down. And then press into your feet and lift your hips just a little bit, maybe 6 inches off the floor, and set them back down. And just repeat that a few times. So if you read the email that I sent out, bridge can be done dynamically, it can be done statically, it can be an energizing pose or a real calming pose. So we'll explore all of those things. Good. And then resting your hips back down on the floor, just engage the abdominals again as you draw the pubic bone away from the navel on the inhale. And on the exhale, draw the navel up and in and the pelvic floor up as you press your low back into the floor. So a few pelvic tilts, inhaling, pulling the pubic bone away from the navel and lengthening the space in your abdominals. And exhale, press your low back into the floor. And you can go at your own speed here. Just have an awareness of when you inhale, you're increasing the length of space between your navel and your sternum, your pubic bone and your navel. And on the exhale, you're shortening that space and lengthening the space in your back. Okay, just a few more times. Great. And then with your feet parallel to one another and your legs parallel to one another, reach with your hands and just be able to touch the back of your heels. And for now, just have your arms alongside your body, palms down. And we're going to press into the feet and lift the hips and reach the arms overhead and let the back of the hands touch the floor behind us. And you don't have to lift your hips very high here. And then on the exhale, just roll down one vertebra at a time. Okay, we call this a rolling bridge or a cascading bridge. So you press into your feet, lift your hips. Now the pelvis wants to be neutral here and maybe a little bit towards the exhale or the anterior tilt. So we want the pelvis, we don't want a big arch in our back when we lift up. So if you need to check that before you press up, you could exhale and press your low back into the floor and then push into your feet and lift. And then roll everything back down. Now, as you do this, check in with your neck as well. So we don't want the neck flattened against the floor. We want the neck to have its natural curve. So one way to work with that is to tilt the chin up slightly. So you keep the natural curve in your neck. And then as we move up and down in this posture, in this shape, this dynamic bridge, we just keep looking up to the ceiling instead of turning our head to look at the screen. If you need to look at me, you need to maybe sit up to do that. Great. And then the next time your hands land behind you, leave the hands and the arms where they are, and then slowly just roll down one vertebra at a time. And imagine that someone is pulling on your tail and lengthening, you're lengthening all the way through your spine as you come down to the floor. And then press into your feet, lift your hips again. And this time you can bring arms down with your back. Great. And then press into your feet, lift your hips, bring your arms behind you, backs of your hands touch the floor. Leave your hands where they are, leave your arms where they are, and roll down one vertebra at a time and really feel like a real lengthening through your spine. Inhale. And bring everything down on the next exhale. Great. And one more time. We'll go do that one more time. Leave your arms behind you. Roll down one vertebra at a time. And then last time, pressing the hips up, and now bringing everything back down. Okay. And just relax for one breath cycle. So when I started practicing yoga over, I guess, 20 plus years ago, that is the only thing I would do. I would do a rolling bridge. My back was so sore from cycling so much, and it was very healing to do that And that was really all the yoga I did. Okay, take your left foot and take it to your right thigh. Now you can have your arms alongside you. You could have your arms in what we call robot arms, so upper arms pressing into the floor and the forearms perpendicular to the floor. Or you could just press your hands, or you could grab the sides of your mat. But we're just going to press into the right foot now and just lift. It's sort of a half a bridge. Press the left foot into the right thigh and then lower that back down. Take the sole of your left foot to the floor. Take your right foot against your left thigh and press and lift. And then roll that back down. And let's just try that one more on each time. So the soles of the feet into the floor. You take the sole of your left foot into your right thigh, sort of inner near the knee, and then press and lift your hips. And then come back down. And then sole of left foot into the floor, right foot onto the left thigh, and lift. And roll back down. Good. And then we'll take our legs long once more and feel the relaxing or the resting of the tops of your legs, the hip flexors. Let that be a relief to just stretch the legs long. You could, if you had a block, take the block and set it underneath your sacrum and let your legs stretch out. So now I'm in a tiny back bend now, but I'm allowing for this opening in the front of my legs. Either way, with or without the block, is fine. Good. Great, and then from here, let's just roll right over to our belly. And bring your forearms underneath, in front of you, and your elbows underneath your shoulders so you're in Sphinx pose. Now here, press your pubic bone into the floor and draw your tailbone down towards your heels. Feel for length in your back. And then you can let your head relax here, and you can sweep your chin through center, right to left, opening up the back of the neck. Keep drawing the pubic bone up towards the navel. So what we're really trying to achieve is our back body and our front body being the same length. Okay, even arcing through the back body. Good. And then from here, you can just come right down to your belly, rest your forehead on the floor, bend your knees. So we're doing quite a bit of back bending today. So in between, it feels nice to relieve the low back. So I like to bend my knees here and just do that same windshield wiper action. Okay. And then we'll take one Bhujangasana. So bring your forehead to the floor, arms alongside your body. Lift your arms off the floor. Lift your head and chest off the floor. Lift your legs. And just see where you are. And then release. Take your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself up through table. Pausing in table. And then resting your hips back towards your heels in child's pose. And then we'll come forward back to table and come to a seat. So we talked about front of the legs need to be open for back bending. Obviously the front body, the shoulders. So we're going to go into a half Virasana. So we bring one leg back, and we line up the outer leg with the lower leg with the upper leg. And you might have to move yourself over to one hip and then roll your calf out of the way. And the idea here is to have the lower leg and the upper leg parallel to one another. And you'll be on the top of this foot. You'll have the top of the foot down onto the floor. Maybe I could scoot away a little bit. And then you can come back to your hands, maybe onto the forearms. All right, and I'm stretching the top of this leg, the quadricep, maybe for some of you all the way down onto your back. Now, if it gives you any pain in your knee, you could try to do the same thing, but up on a block, like so. A little less intense, okay? Right, and I'll do a little different orientation to show the second leg. So I rest on one hip and I kind of roll my calf out of the way. Actually, I think I'll turn and face you this way. Lower leg lined up right beside upper leg. Get my calf out of the way. And then I can come down onto my forearms, maybe on my hands, and maybe all the way down on my back. So an alternative to this, if that does not work in your body, is simply to lie on your side and take a quad stretch this way. So lying on your back, or lying on your side rather, and just taking the top leg with the top hand and pulling your heel towards your butt, maybe taking the knee back into the back body space. So I, in particular, have very open quads. And so this does not feel particularly uncomfortable to me. I think I used to probably sit and watch TV like this when I was a kid. But everyone's body is different, and we want to practice in the bodies we have. So once you've done both legs, the front of both legs, please find your block if you haven't been already using it, and we'll take it in this orientation and we'll come to Virasana in this orientation. So as you bring your seat down onto your block, I'm going to turn around so that you can see. I really want my ankles to be right up against the block. So I'm sitting and I've got my ankles sort of squeezing the block in this position. Yeah? Okay. And then we'll take our strap and we'll just bring the strap above our head and begin just to floss the shoulders slightly. So you'll have to play with the position of your hands. This you might need to have your hands very wide as you move up and over your head. And then once you've done a few times like that, you're going to bring your right hand up and your left hand back behind you. So now we have a little bit of a side bend here, opening through the lateral sheath a bit more. And this top shoulder, my right shoulder, and then I'll bring it up to the other side. So now left arm up, right arm's behind, and so that's just another flossing sort of action. You can go back and forth with that, and pay attention as you do this to your low back. And if you're excessively arching in the low back, can you draw the low ribs in, draw the navel in, and really firmly sit on the sit bones, okay? So you're not excessively arching in your low back as you do this. Okay, and then coming back to center, I'll just turn to show you the next move. So now take your strap, and now you're going to have your palms facing in on the strap, and you'll reach your hands down towards the floor. Again, if you feel like you have excessive arch in the low back, draw the pubic bone towards the navel and upstroke the navel. Good, so you might stay right here. This might be plenty for you. You might be able to pull the arms off the back slightly. And just be patient with this. And then release. Bring your hands to the front of your body and roll your shoulders up, down, and back. Maybe take a hug in one orientation, and then hug yourself in the other orientation. Good. Okay, and then we'll now come to our hands and knees. You can take the block out and leave the block to the front of your mat. Come onto your hands and knees, and just a few cat-cows here. As you inhale, draw some length through your body. So lengthen the space between sternum and navel, between navel and pubic bone. And then on your exhale, press into your hands, round your back, tuck your tail, tuck your chin. Just a few cat-cows here, feeling into your spine. And if you want to make this a little more organic, you could circle through your cat-cows. And if you're circling, take that in the opposite direction. And then come back to center. And now we'll open up, we'll work in the shoulders a little bit more. So as you inhale, you'll sweep the right arm up. And as you exhale, you'll thread underneath the left arm and sort of reach over to the left. And inhale, sweep the right arm up. And exhale, come through, reaching to the left, just hovering. And just a few times here, noticing what is your sort of preferred way of moving, of solving problems, of closing gaps. Is it lots of movement, or would you prefer the stillness? So this is what speaks to us in our asana practice. Last time through, you can reach over, rest on your right shoulder, outer shoulder. The left hand can reach forward, or you could rest your left hand on your sacrum, or go for the bind, so reaching for the inner right leg. And just feel an opening in the back of the right shoulder. And then take your left hand beside your head, press yourself up, both hands under the shoulders, a couple of cat-cows here just to neutralize the spine. So we definitely have a preference, right? Some of us like to vinyasa, meaning move from pose to pose very quickly. And some of us like to hold. And it's interesting to look at your tendencies. Inhale the left arm up now, and exhale, come underneath and reach. And we don't always want to sort of make ourselves do something that's not kind of our preference, but it's good. It's good for us. So I tend to be someone who likes to vinyasa and keep moving. Big surprise there. So sometimes for me to hold longer, I might hold now, resting the left side of my head on the floor. The left hand reaches out. Right hand can rest on the sacrum or go for the bind or reach forward. It's just a really good brain exercise to mix up and switch up what we sort of organically, naturally want to do, and to give ourselves that discipline. Bring your right hand beside your head, press yourself up, hands underneath shoulders, and 2 cat-cows. Even in our practice, so what's become clear to me as I continue this yoga practice journey is that I don't need yoga to be like everything else I do. I kind of like it to be a little bit different. Good. From tabletop, you can bring your right foot forward. You'll want your block now, and or not. You might have your hands down on the floor, but if you have a block, you can now move forward, opening the top of the left hip, and backwards, working the front leg hamstring. So just move back and forth in that manner. And again, you notice your tendency. If you're someone who likes to really just keep have the practice be very, very active, or can you stay and hold? And if you're someone who likes to stay and hold, can you invite a little bit more movement here, more dynamic? So static and dynamic both have value. Good. And if you have your hands on your blocks, you might take your hands to the floor just to switch this up. Other foot forward and working the other side. And both sides of our bodies will not feel the same. Probably have a little more stickiness on one side than the other. And then from here, we can come back to table, move your block a little bit out of the way. Grab your strap, have that handy. And actually, you might even take your strap here. Let's come up onto our knees and just put our strap on our shoulders. We'll try this. And then press yourself up, downward facing dog. If the strap's bothering you, just set it to the side. It doesn't matter. I was trying to be very efficient. Bring your feet a little closer to your hands in this downward dog. And I am going to remove my strap. Put it over to the side. And then reaching through with the right hand to the outside of the left leg. Bend the left leg. Take the outside of your shin and then straighten. So feel a stretch, a twisting stretch here. And then right hand back. Bend your right leg. Take your left hand to the outside of your right leg. And then straighten your right leg and feel a stretch through the shoulders here. And a little twist. And then take your left hand back. Good. And you can step back into a more traditional downward dog, inhaling the right leg up and sweeping it forward on the exhale between your hands. Bring your left foot up and out slightly. Now grab your block and come on up into Vira 1, Warrior 1. Good. All right. So holding this Vira 1, we'll take the strap above our head and just get in the frame a little better here. And then open up, flossing the shoulders again. And noticing as you do so, if you get that excessive arch in your back, can you draw your tailbone down towards your back heel? Yeah. And then it'll be one arm up, one arm back. Inhale, sweep the strap back up. Go to the other side. One arm comes up long, other arm behind. Just continue that a couple times. Holding the legs. The legs are steady. The legs are the trusses, right? They're steady as we move through our upper body. Grounding. Good. And then we'll bring the strap in front so we can change the orientation. We'll come back to the palms in on the strap, and then reach the strap down towards your heels, opening through your chest. Now notice front body and back body. Can we try to get front body and back body sort of equal length? So that means drawing the tailbone down. So there'll be a tilting pubic bone towards navel. Tilting in the pelvis, pubic bone towards navel. So even in these back bends, we don't want a pinching in the low back. Holding this. Now, experiment here with the following. I've got my hands in pretty close here. I'm going to slide my hands away from one another and feel broadening across my back. So now I'm trying to pull the strap apart as I broaden the placement of my hands, and that feels very different in my upper back. I don't know about you. And then release, and let the block just come down to the floor. Inhale your arms up, drop your shoulder tops. Exhale, come down around your front foot and step back into downward facing dog. Lift the heels, draw the kneecaps up, head between the biceps. Inhale the left leg up. And exhale as you round your back. You could tent your left fingers, draw your left foot forward between your hands. In this low lunge, take your right foot forward a bit and out at a 45-degree angle. And then inhale as you grab your strap, come up, Warrior 1 on this side. Same thing, we'll take the strap above our head and just begin to floss through the shoulders first. Holding the Warrior 1 legs, strong in the legs. And then once we've done that a few times, one arm comes up and you have to catch your balance there. One arm up, one hand behind. Notice if you have excessive arch in your low back, and see if you can draw the tailbone down towards the back heel slightly. So you're lengthening through your back body. And then you'll need to probably bring the strap, change the orientation now. So now it's palms facing in towards your back, and then pulling the strap apart, reach down towards the back heel with the strap. So you really are pulling the shoulder blades down and in. And notice if you have space in your neck or if you've got your shoulders shrugging up towards ears, and can you really take the shoulder tops and drop them down and feel this squeezing. So we're working the muscles on the back, and then slowly separate your hands, broaden through your back more, and feel the difference there. And we're going to play with that when we eventually come back down to the floor in bridge. Great, and then you can take the strap over and just set it over to the side. Inhale, reach your arms up, drop your shoulder tops. Exhale, hands down around the front foot and step back, downward facing dog. In your downward facing dog, draw your kneecaps up. Okay, from here we're going to open up the hips just a little bit more. So inhale the right leg out behind you. Bend your knee. Standing leg, left leg, really draw the hip in and under. So kind of really contract your buttocks as you stack your right hip over your left hip. Press firmly into your left hand. And then release. Inhale, reach the left leg out. Really contract the right buttocks, bend the left knee, and then stack as you draw the right hip under, stack the left hip on top of the right hip. Press firmly into the right hand. And then take your left foot back to the floor. Come forward into the High Dandasana. And reach your back towards the ceiling. And then both knees to the floor. And let your hips come back. Resting on your heels, bring your arms alongside you in full Balasana, child's pose. And then bring your hands right on either side of your head. Press yourself up. Let your hips come to one side. And take your legs out in front in Dandasana. So centering yourself on the mat. Now we'll come to the floor and we'll play with a couple of variations of bridge. So come back down onto your back. Now set up here by taking the feet. You could actually just pick your head up and look at your legs. So we want the thighs to be parallel to one another, and we want the lower legs to be directly over the ankles if possible. Great. And then press into your feet and isometrically draw your feet away from one another. Okay. And then from here, with the arms just beside you, press into your feet now, the soles of your feet, and lift your hips. Just leaving the arms alongside your body, maybe even a little wider than that, pressing the palms into the floor, pressing the hips up. Notice if your knees start to splay out to the sides. Keep the thighs parallel to one another as much as possible. Now, bring your awareness to your neck. Make sure you have the natural curve of the neck happening. So you might tip the chin up slightly and reach the sternum towards the chin. Okay, keep pressing into the feet, noticing if you have shifted your weight to the outsides of your feet, Bring more weight into the insides. And then imagine you're drawing your knees long towards the wall that's in front of you, the wall that's in front of your knees and your feet, that direction. So lengthen. Good. And now slowly, just slowly roll down one vertebra at a time. Okay. So with the arms wide in that bridge, we kept the back body open and wide. So we'll try a different variation. Okay. We press into the feet and we draw the feet apart isometrically. That's going to engage the hamstrings, so we're not just using all glutes. And then now I'm going to bend my arms and press my upper arms into the floor. So I've got upper arms pressing into the floor, soles of the feet into the floor, isometrically drawing feet apart. So on your exhale, as you draw navel up and in, press and lift. Now here, this way bridge is traditionally taught a lot. I'm gonna rock over to one shoulder blade, tuck the other shoulder blade underneath. Back, tuck the other shoulder blade underneath. So I've got my shoulder blades tucked underneath, and then I interlace my hands underneath my sacrum and press my pinkies into the floor. So now it's like when we had the belt on, right? Squeezing shoulder blades in. Sometimes for me, this makes my neck feel a little bit tight. So you can play around with this. If that does, just bring your hands back out to the side. Okay? There's a couple different ways to do this posture. Now, noticing whether my knees are splayed out to the side, right? I want to draw my thighs parallel to one another and reach the knees away. Lengthen the space between the knees and the side ribs. So my legs, the tops of my legs are getting a nice stretch. Good. Tilt the chin up. Tilt the chin up so you keep the natural curve of your neck. And we don't want to turn our head to one side or the other here. And then we'll slowly, slowly lower down. Slowly lower down, one vertebra at a time. Okay, very nice. Now, at any time, because we're close to the end of practice, at any time before we all get to it, if you need to, just take your block, lowest setting, set it right underneath your sacrum, arms out to the side. This is a supportive bridge. This is a calming, supportive, resting posture. Okay, we got a couple more dynamic ones to do, but you can always go there when you're ready. All right, now let's bring the arms alongside our body, palms down, and now press your low back into the floor. Lift your heels. Lift your heels, and then press into your toes. Lift your hips towards the ceiling. Chin up towards the ceiling. Keep the natural curve in the back of your neck. You can feel the shoulder girdle working, but we don't want the neck to be flat. Now notice if your knees have splayed out, and bring the upper legs parallel to one another. Lift the hips a little higher. And then slowly roll down one vertebra at a time. One vertebra at a time. Very nice. Okay. And then we can drop the heels down. And now lift the toes. Press your low back into the floor. Feel that length in your low back. And then press into the heels and lift. You won't get as high. Arms press into the floor. You could scoot the shoulders underneath if you want to work on strengthening between the shoulder blades, or you could leave the arms wide and then slowly lower back down. One vertebra at a time. Make it be a nice massage. Now take your block between your upper inner thighs. And now this is going to really help you keep the legs from splaying out, the knees from splaying out. So soles of the feet to the floor. Any arm position is fine. You could have your arms out to the side, palms down, a little bit 45 degrees or so. You could have the robot arms. And now squeeze the block, press low back into the floor, press into feet, lift your hips, squeezing the block. It's harder to get as much height with the block here, but it really helps you feel for the alignment of your legs. And lower back down. Okay, and again, once you've had enough of the dynamic, put the block underneath your sacrum, rest in the bridge pose. Think about just relaxing there. We'll do one more variation, okay? So settle yourself, find the appropriate pelvic tilt. So it's not fully an anterior tilt, but it's a kind of a neutral spine. So I think pressing the back into the floor helps us kind of find the neutral spine there, the neutral tilt. And then feet into the floor and isometrically draw the feet apart. You might even isometrically draw your heels back towards your booty and reach back and feel that engages the hamstrings. Arm position of your choice, and press and lift. Good. And now from here, you could hold yourself up. You could put your hands underneath your booty here. Okay. You could interlace the hands and press the pinkies into the floor. So you scooch your shoulder blades underneath. And then heel toe your feet in towards midline. So your legs are quite close to one another. And then you can lift one leg. And set that leg back down. And lift the other leg. And set that heel back down. Good. So to come out of this, let's go really slow. Heel toe the feet apart. Reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Feel the broadness across your back. Lift your heels off the floor. And then roll down one vertebra at a time like you're getting a nice massage. Beautiful. And then from here, you can take the block underneath your sacrum, feet on the floor. Relax your hands out to the side. I like to have my palms up now, more like a Shavasana set up with my hands. Or you could bring your legs up. So this is a supported shoulder stand. Right, very calming and relaxing. If you didn't have a block, you could just do this without the block, or you could prop your legs up against the wall. And now let your breath really slow back down. And let your body receive the effort. At any time, you can take the block out and move into Shavasana. If you need a squeeze, knees into chest momentarily, you can do that. Soften the muscles on your face and around your eyes. Allow the inhale and exhale to lengthen. Feel the earth supporting you. Notice if there's anywhere in your body that you're still holding, and see if you can let that go. Imagine just the stillness of a really placid lake. You can stay in Shavasana as long as you'd like, or you can come to a seat. And we'll bring our hands to prayer position. Give yourself an internal namaste. And so an honoring of uh, your brilliance, your ability to really work those gaps in your life, to access the toolkit that you have. May the merit of our practice encourage all beings to unveil the hidden brilliance that lies within. Namaste. Thanks so much for joining today. I'll stop the recording now.